Oh, well, good morning, everybody. 2nd of June 2020. And I just posted a very brief video showing Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. She opened up the state so that everyone could travel all around Queensland. And she said, jump in your car, put a trailer on it. Well, she says a trailer or a caravan, you know. And drive out and see Granddad at Longreach. Or drive up to Cairns. Nothing wrong with a road trip, is there? She says. Now, by the way, Cairns is over 1,000 miles in the old measurement from Brisbane. It's equivalent, by the way, of going from Hanoi to Saigon. It's a long way. It's a 3 hours nothing. It's a 3-day drive. 2.5, perhaps, if you want to put it that way. There are no planes, as of yesterday, between Brisbane and Cairns. Now, they'll start opening the air services, I reckon, would be underway within days. Limited air service. My prediction is they'll have a certain number of planes going. Whether they're just Qantas or whether they're Jetstar, whether they're Virgin, I don't know. Those sorts of things don't concern me right now. But what does concern me is that I run a group on Facebook with over 3,000 members. It's the seniors travel card, the $2.50 travel ticket group, and booming along that group. There's a lot of people, and they're very, very keen and exchange ideas, and the thing is to have trip reports, suggestions about where you could go when the COVID-19 business is finally over. Now, what's very interesting about all of this at the moment is, and this is especially for my overseas friends, you can travel throughout Queensland as of yesterday, and you can travel throughout New South Wales. But you can't travel between Queensland and New South Wales over the state border. You go, what? What? You know? Someone from overseas would say, what are you talking about? Well, I can assure you, this carry on about COVID-19. Yes, it's infectious and there's so on, but is this. They did the same thing 100 years ago, quite literally. In 1918, they closed the borders. They quarantined, they closed the schools, they did all sorts of things because of the Spanish flu. Now, that was justified in a way because they had 30,000 deaths from that Spanish flu. Well, we got about, I don't even know, just about 100 deaths, I think, from COVID-19. They're making far more fuss over it. Anyway, I'm not getting into that story as such, but I am saying that closing the borders is illegal. And straight away say, what? Illegal? They wouldn't do something that's illegal? Well, yes, they would. The Australian Constitution, Section 93, gives us freedom of trade and freedom of travel within and between the states. There's no excuse, there's no, well, in case of pandemics or in case of war or in case of emergency. There's none of that in the Australian Constitution saying, oh, you can suspend the Constitution, because no, you can't. It's the law and not a guidebook. And I'd say, even though I'm assuming that this travel group is supposed to be non-political, let's say, or neutral. I've never stated it as such, by the way, but I guess I assume there's people from all sides of politics in the group. But I'd say Anastasia Palaszczuk and her government would be out the door on the state election on October the 31st. But seriously, for a moment, how can you have a situation where they're going to open up travel fairly soon to New Zealand? So a person would be able to fly from Brisbane to Auckland or Wellington or Christchurch, or from Sydney to those locations, or from Melbourne to those locations, but you couldn't go from Brisbane down to Sydney. You can go from Sydney to Melbourne. Those two areas are now open. And on the similar subject, by the way, parallel, let's say, to what we're talking about, the overland train is supposed to be coming back to be paid for until the end of June. Excuse me, the state border of South Australia is closed. Another illegal action like I was just talking about. How do you run a train between Melbourne and Adelaide if the state border is closed? Well, the answer is you can't. So people who are interested in travel and love train travel and so on, members of my group who are just itching to get moving, all they're receiving is a totally confused message. As I said, travel within the state, but not between the states. This has got to end, and I've got to say that Queensland Rail, as we're getting focusing back in on that, needs to get their rostering and everything to get together to say, right, okay, we're going to put an ad on statewide television, Brisbane television, today, or certainly no later than by tomorrow. Book your trips to Western Queensland if you want to go out to Mount Isa or you want to go to Charleville. Now, by the way, they've got problems with no sleeping cars on those trains, but at least travel. Let's just take Brisbane Cairns, for example. They're running 3 days a week Brisbane to Rockhampton on the Tilt train, and that's all. And 3 days a week Brisbane to Cairns, same line but continuing all the way to Cairns. How are people going to be able to do it now that the state's open? I'm suggesting that they do a major advertising campaign, as I said, literally within 24 hours or so from now. All the trains should be running to their normal schedule as of next week, as of next Sunday, so that 1 week from now you'll have a normal train service throughout Queensland. I also urge that the border be reopened so that people can travel between Sydney and Brisbane. Right now they can't. So I just thought I'd make those few comments there, and I welcome any civil and polite discussion on this, and I urge members of my group in particular to get onto Queensland Rail as soon as possible. Even if you're not intending to travel right now, just simply ask the question, when are you going to operate trains to Western Queensland? I'm interested in going out to Longreach, for example. They give you the same answer probably that I got today. Oh, we got Longreach is a bit remote, says the woman. Well, hang on, you go by car though. We got crewing, we got scheduling and crewing issues. Well, have you? Well, how soon would it take to call in everybody as required to operate the train? I'll leave you with that, and thank you for viewing.